Lately, I've been especially intrigued by agribusinesses that have remained innovative while also withstanding the test of time, particularly those who have remained privately owned and customer-focused. We've heard that recently from Beck's Hybrids and from Wilbur Ellis. And today, 85-year-old animal management tech company Gallagher definitely fits this description.
You might have a nice software platform, but the hardware on farm, that's where it all starts. It's a harsh environment. If it doesn't withstand being on an animal out, in your paddock or on your ranch for lengths of time, you don't really have a product.
That's Gallagher Animal Management Chief Executive Lisbeth Jacobs. Today we discuss their laser focus on the customer, their global strategy, and how they consistently innovate over decades without getting distracted by whichever shiny objects everyone else seems to be focusing on.
That, I think, sets us apart also from maybe the big corporates. We can do that. We can have those conversations and we can say, no, look, our competitors are doing these things, but actually let them. We don't see the value in that. We push the envelope, but it has to deliver value.
Gallagher's Lisbeth Jacobs on today's Future of Agriculture podcast. Hello, fellow Ag Nerd. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Future of Agriculture. My name is Tim Hamrich, and every week you and I get to hear from the founders, farmers, innovators, and investors, the people shaping the future of the ag industry. And I'm very pleased to welcome onto the show Gallagher Animal Management Chief Executive Lisbeth Jacobs. There really is nothing like the battle-tested point of view from a company that has been an innovator and market leader in agriculture for a very long time. In Gallagher's case, it's technology for animal management. A quick description of them from their website, if you're not familiar. Founded in 1938, Gallagher is now known and respected in over 100 countries as a family-owned business built on customer-led innovation. From the electric fence to the cloud, Gallagher's connected and customizable ecosystem of solutions empower customers to work responsibly, productively, and profitably to protect what matters most. So their customers are going to be primarily ranchers and livestock raisers, particularly those who raise livestock on pastures. And I just love the juxtaposition of this pastoral customer grazing livestock, which has been done for thousands of years, but also using the latest in technology, like virtual fencing, which Gallagher sells under the brand eShepherd. Lisbeth and I will talk about eShepherd specifically, as well as Farmote, a joint venture between Gallagher and Barenburg to commercialize technology for automated pasture monitoring, which again is under the name Farmote. Lisbeth joined Gallagher as Chief Executive of Animal Management in April 2021. Prior to this, she held senior leadership roles at the leading edge of applied innovation and sustainability with Fletcher Building, Uniservices, the Icehouse, and global steelcord and steelwire company Bekaert, where she worked and lived across Europe, China, the Middle East, and North America. Lisbeth holds a PhD of engineering from the University of Auckland, and her background in both business leadership and engineering, I think, will shine through in today's episode. So enjoy this conversation with Gallagher Animal Management Chief Executive Lisbeth Jacobs. My in-laws do a wagon train every year in Wyoming with like horses, and they go in real old wagons, and we set up an electric fence at the end of the day every day, and it's a Gallagher fence, and it has been passed along. It was my wife's grandfather passed it to her father, who still has it, and it's been going forever. So high quality products for a long time, I have a feeling.
Yeah, that is exactly right. But you might want to think about an upgrade because our technology has evolved and it gets better every day, every year. We add new features. So now you can actually, with the newer ones, you can turn them on and off from your phone. You can also check remotely to see if they're actually working or which sections potentially are not working. So technology has moved on. But I'm glad to hear that it's still working for you.
That's good. Yeah, maybe for Christmas we'll have to get my father on a new one. I want to get a new one just for the bag. The bag is finally starting to show some wear and tear and have holes so things fall out of it. But when somebody has something that works, especially if you're like a farmer rancher type, when you have something that works, it takes a lot for you to want to make a change.
Yes, yes. But if you stick with the same orange brand, you know you'll be good. Yeah. So we have been around for 85 years. And I think that's why also we're known. I mean, we have been known for many decades for the quality of our products and the reliability. And we continuously drive that innovation. I mean, we were the first to come out with solar powered energizers. Now a lot of the electric fencing manufacturers obviously offer that, but we were the first to launch that in Europe, as a matter of fact. But now you have it available all around the world. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. Let's just back up a bit and have you introduce yourself, just who you are and what you do.
Okay. So I'm Lisbeth Jacobs. I am the Chief Executive of Gallagher Animal Management. We are an 85-year-old company that's active in providing solutions to farmers and ranchers. Well, in fact, everybody who manages animals or who manages land. We've been doing that for a long time, but we continue to be a really strong innovator. So my background, I am not from a farming background. I'm an engineer. I hold a PhD in engineering, in fact. And I've been working, before I came to Gallagher 3.5 years ago, I worked for multinationals, listed companies, mainly in the technology space and how to actually take technology to the world, scale technology. And I've done that with activities in China. So I lived and worked in China for some time. The company I worked for is headquartered in Europe, but had activities all around the world, including in the US. And so that's really what excites me. It's technology, scaling technology, internationalizing technology, and staying on the forefront of technology through collaboration with other technology companies, and also translating that technology so it actually makes a real difference in people's lives. And in case of Gallagher, that's a lot of the farming community relies on us. And so that's what we focus on. It's making sure that whatever we develop solves a real life problem. So we call it the jobs to be done. We try to stay really close to our customers, engage with our customers, and really understand what jobs they're trying to get done. And we need to make sure that whatever solutions we provide helps them do these jobs better, take some of the pain out, provide some additional gain. And so that's our focus. It's not technology for technology's sake, but it's technology in service of customers trying to live better, easier, more productive lives.
That's great. And so the first thing I have to admit to you here, sometimes I read so much that I decide how words are pronounced in my head before I actually validate that with anyone else. I've always said Gallagher, but you're saying Gallagher. So it's Gallagher. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, and our founder, Sir William Gallagher, feels very strongly about that. I mean, he's not upset when people pronounce the name differently, but it is Gallagher. It's not Gallagher's or Gallagher. So that's something that they teach us when we walk in. They say, look, Gallagher is pronounced Gallagher. And so it's an Irish background, very strong Irish roots, but multiple generations in New Zealand already. And yes, so we pronounced it Gallagher at the request of Sir William Gallagher. Yeah.
Good to know. And I know we could spend probably the entire hour on the history of Gallagher, but I am curious how the target customer has changed, if at all, over the history. Are you evolving to a more consolidated customer, or is the target customer kind of the same it was maybe 80 years ago?
No, I think definitely customers have changed, but also our customers look very different. There are similarities, but there are also differences between the different countries where we operate. And customer expectations are different in the different countries where we operate. I mean, a New Zealand farmer and an Australian farmer are probably relatively similar. But when you look at the farmers in the US, the ranchers, I should say, in the US, that's where it starts already. In the US, we don't call them farmers, but ranchers. We've got customers in Canada that look slightly different. I mean, the size of the operations is different. The needs of the people using our products are different. Latin America is different again. Europe is very different. So what we try to do, and we have this global approach that we use. So we're a global company. We engage with customers all around the world, but we are very, very mindful and tuned into the local differences and the local requirements of our customer groups. And that's when I talk about jobs to be done, we listen really carefully to the local customer groups, what they need, what they require, and we then turn that back into the product development teams to make sure that the products we develop for the US are suitable for the ranchers we work with. The same in Latin America, in Europe. And so that also offers us a lot of cross-pollination. So we learn certain things from a farmer profile in Europe, like the solar energizers were actually developed based on input we received from our European customers. And we then translated that into a product. We sold it successfully in Europe, but we saw actually a lot of our other farming communities around the world would also like this and benefit from this. And so now the whole world uses solar energizers. So we learn from one area and translate that into a product. And then often we can leverage that across different customer groups. So customers are different, to answer your question, in every country. Customers have changed. We see a lot more consolidation. We see a lot more farms becoming larger, farming operations becoming larger. We see a shift from the owner-operated farms or the family-owned and operated farms to more corporate farms where you put a corporate farm manager in. So a difference between the owner and the operator is also, we see that. And we absolutely see, as the generations are becoming younger, the need for data. People are used to having apps on their phone. They want an app to also manage their animals and see what their fences are doing. So yes, we see that shift just like we see in society at large. Data is becoming ubiquitous, and we see that in agri-tech as well. And we need to provide us an answer to that, which we do. So yes, a lot of change.
Absolutely. Well, you referenced the solar example there, and I appreciate that. Are there any other kind of jobs to be done that you've really picked up on in your time there that maybe Gallagher is currently trying to address for local customers or customers around the world?
Yeah. So we've got the whole, the pasture measurement area. So we support a lot of farmers that run pastoral systems. So in New Zealand, in Australia, most of the animals are outside, they're grass-fed. So we've got highly intensive pastoral grazing systems. And in that, getting on top of your grass, knowing how much grass you have, where feed you have is really important. Farmers here in New Zealand, they actually walk their paddocks with a plate meter to see how much grass they have. They move they rotationally graze, they move their animals around depending on how much grass they have. That is a need that we identified really strongly, and we started looking specifically for ways on how we could make that easier for our farming community. How can we automate that? And there's some technology out there, but nothing was really fully reliable and automated until our eye fell on this technology called Farmote out of Christchurch in New Zealand that connects the ground truthing. So you have motes in the ground that look at the local grass height, but then connecting that in with satellite imagery to be able to translate that to the larger, the whole of your farm. So you look on the ground what your grass looks like, and then you check in with your satellite imagery and you translate that to grass height across the farm. That was new. That was very novel because we had a lot of pasture measurement tools that were only on the ground that you just need to walk, or only satellite. But if you have a lot of cloud cover, you don't get any data of what's happening on the ground. So that connection between satellite and ground truthing was new. We picked that up. We made an investment. Another company called Barenburg, a seed company headquartered in Europe and the Netherlands, also saw a lot of use for that. They had made an investment. And so we were working very closely together trying to support that startup company to really try and scale and do better. unfortunately, the company didn't make it, and so we decided we were going to pick up the assets, put those assets into a new joint venture between Barenburg and us, and we're now actively developing that technology first for Europe and for New Zealand. But we know that there will be, again, like with the solar energizer, there will be applications in other countries around the world for that technology. And so that's another example of, okay, we know it's a job to be done. We know it's not being met. Let's see if we can proactively go and find something, get it ready, scale it, and then see if we can actually take that to other countries around the world where they have that need.
Yeah. And is that joint venture operating under the Farmote name, or what name is that going to be under?
So it's going to operate under the name Farmote Technologies. So we are setting that up. In first instance, we are doing trials because actually the technology is not ready to commercialize. We have it on a number of farms, so we've taken those farms over, but we are treating them more like trial sites. We'll get alongside those customers. I think we've got it on 6 or 7 farms in New Zealand. We've got it on a number of farms, 25, 26 in Europe. We'll wrap ourselves around those customers as we always do. We'll learn a lot. We'll provide a lot of support with the idea of making the technology better, making it scalable. And then when we're done with that, we'll do the commercial rollout. It's one of those startup companies that probably tried to run before they could walk. And so we've done these things many times before. We know how to scale technology. I mean, another example is eShepherd. So we fully acquired the virtual fencing technology from a company called Icehouse in Australia. We owned 50% of that startup company. We then took the 100%, so it's 100% us now. But we've done the same thing. We've rolled that back and really re-looked at the technology and made it fit for purpose. We redesigned the whole thing before we then, really lean in and scale. So we're at the scaling stage, but we bought it 3.5 years ago fully. We had been involved years before that. But what we saw when we acquired it fully and we looked really fully under the hood, we saw, look, the technology is not reliable enough. The hardware needs to be redesigned. The software needs to be redesigned. We've done that over the last 3 years, and now we know it works. We've done lots of beta trials in the last year. It is reliable. It is solid. And now we're scaling. So sometimes you need to walk back a little bit in order to actually accelerate and launch commercially and not disappoint a whole lot of people in the market, because a lot of the virtual fencing companies as well, they've launched it with a lot of big poo-ha and we're going to take this on. But look, if your hardware is not reliable, you might have a nice software system, but if your hardware is not moisture proof, breaks, doesn't have the power autonomy, causes issues on animals, you don't really have a product. You might have a nice software platform, but the hardware on farm, that's where it all starts. It's a harsh environment. If it doesn't withstand being on an animal out, in your paddock or on your ranch for lengths of time, you don't really have a product. And so that's where we come in with our 85 years of experience. We know what farm life is like. Like our energizers, they can be driven over by a tractor and still work. So we know what resilience is. We know what power autonomy, all of these things we understand. So that's often what we do. We walk it back. We make sure it's robust, it's reliable, ready to scale, and then we go again. And that's what we've done with virtual fencing as well.
And when you're talking about new technologies like this that that they have never been to the standard that you're trying to take them to in terms of reliability, how do you know as the leader, like, we can do this? Let's take on that, because I'm sure it's a massive investment. How do you know, like, we can get it to where it needs to be?
Well, with new technology, you never really know that 100%. We're typically certain, 80% certain we can do this. Then you get to work. And with virtual fencing, for example, if you analyze it, you have a solar panel. So you've got the power autonomy bit. We know solar energizers that have power autonomy. We know that bit. We've done it. It's just we put it into another. It's a collar. It's a neckband. It's not an energizer, but actually the solar panel technology we know really well. We also know how to deliver a pulse. We've been doing that for 85 years. we know that bit really well. So the transformer, etc., etc., we know all of that really well. We know how sturdy things need to be. So the reliability in the field. I mean, our energizers, you can literally drive a truck over. So we know how to do that. Like moisturing grease, all the products we make, we know how to make sure that they can live outside and we can keep moisture out. So all of these elements, the individual elements that go into that neckband, we understand. So it's about putting all of those pieces of technology into a different product. And when we acquired the company, they were really strong on the software, on the algorithms, the animal behavioral stuff. They had that really sussed, and that's also what we acquired. But all the other bits, all the hardware bits, we've been doing it forever. And that's what sets us apart from some of the other players in the virtual fencing space. They come at it from the animal algorithms, from the data, from the software, from the data platforms. But in most of the cases of our competitors in that space, they outsource the manufacturing of those collars to Chinese or, that's contract manufactured. It's not done in-house. And for us, that is what we know really well. We do that. So when we acquired Adjacents, for example, that company was making their neckbands in China, and they were setting up a manufacturing site in Thailand. We took over the Adjacents technology, and the first thing that I did was actually close down the manufacturing in China. Also, because I don't want our flagship product to be made in China. I don't think that's a particularly good idea because the Chinese are very, very well versed in reverse engineering and in copying, and good on them. But I don't want my product to be one of those. So we shut down the manufacturing in China. We actually shut down the onboarding of the Thai manufacturing plant. And we said, we know best than anybody else how to do this. So we pulled all of that manufacturing back into Hamilton. And that was the key differentiator, because suddenly in our redesign cycles were a lot shorter because we have our R&D people in Australia and New Zealand. We have our product development people here. The people who translate that into manufacturing are here. As soon as we see something needs to be tweaked, we tweak it. Our cycle is a week, 2 weeks. If you work with manufacturing offshore, you need to send things. Takes 5 weeks. It needs to come back. By the time you're in your second development cycle, you're 2 months down the track. We don't have that issue. We control it end to end. From the design, from the R&D, all the way to the manufacturing, we control the whole lot. And we can make tweaks wherever we need to make tweaks. So we're actively investing in the US at the moment. So our general manager for eShepherd is actually based in the US. Not in Hamilton, based out of Kansas City, based in the US. We have a tech support team based in the US. Once our volumes in the US are going up, we will start localizing some of that manufacturing in the US. So it's not like I need to manufacture everything in Hamilton, but I manufacture where it makes sense to be close to the customer. So we just this year moved some of our manufacturing into the US because we just want to be close to our customers. So it's not like I want to do everything in Hamilton, but I don't believe in offshoring stuff to low-cost countries to chase that last cent and that last dollar, because actually it is false economies. Because you pay for it in quality, you pay for it in supply chain resilience, you pay for it in leakage of IP. In any case, you pay for it, especially for high-tech products. So with eShepherd, we definitely have the plan once we get to the high volumes to maybe make some of the boards here in New Zealand, the big volume stuff, but our plastic injection molding, our final assembly, we are going to do that closer to our customer. We're going to do that in Kansas City. We've got a big operation in Kansas City, a big team. Our general manager there grew up on a farm. So Doug Jones, he knows farming intimately. Our general manager for eShepherd is in the US. That's what I mean with global. We are a global company, but we localize as much as we can. I've gone off on a sidetrack here, but I get really excited when I talk about that.
No, I'm enjoying it thoroughly. Yeah. And what I'm hearing, is a really aligned approach between, 85 years of kind of hardware expertise, in-house manufacturing, complete private ownership. So you don't have to worry about boosting the numbers on a quarterly basis. Allows you to be patient and work at the speed of farmers who've got these jobs to be done. And it really makes a lot of sense when you kind of frame it up the way you have.
What you said, what you started with when you said, look, we've had this energizer handed down over the generations. That is something that we absolutely love. And that is what we want to be known for. That's what we want to continue to build. And that's also why we will not launch something commercially until we are certain we can provide that kind of experience to our customers, because that's what we're known for. And they say your reputation comes by, at snail's pace, and it leaves on horseback. You build up a reputation really, really slowly, but you can lose it in an instant. So that's why we are that 85-year of reputation of being reliable, really providing customer service, being intimately knowing our customers' needs. We've built that carefully. We value that, and we're not going to do anything that can see that, disappear overnight. And it doesn't mean that things that we launch will immediately work, because we do want to, like the new technology, all of the other stuff that we make will always work. But like eShepherd, the pasture measurement, but we will work really openly with those beta customers and say, hey, this is new tech. Do you want to trial it? We will wrap ourselves around you. We'll be available to problem solve. But this is one of the new technology that we're launching. That's also why we created a brand extension called Gallagher Next. So people know when they buy something, like eShepherd, Gallagher Next, that there might be some teething pains, but we will wrap ourselves around you. We'll work with you through that. But this is our next generation of innovation. And the reliability might be 95% and not the 99.9 that you've come to expect from us. So we're very open and transparent, but we want to keep on pushing the boundaries. But the reliability of our hardware is a non-negotiable. That's what we're known for. This will work on farm, on animals.
Makes a lot of sense. It seems like, from what I do know about Gallagher, that you all have stayed really true to yourselves through this, 85 plus year history. Especially today, when it comes to technology, there's a ton of shiny objects out there, right? There's a ton of, but what if we coulds? How do you assess whether innovation or research technology remains true to the Gallagher brand, but also you stay relevant to wherever the world is evolving?
Yeah, we are very lucky that in our team, we have a lot of farmers. We have a lot of people who work in my team, but who also have a working farm. One of them, one prominent one, is Sarah Adams, is the one who has been the driving force behind eShepherd. She has a working sheep and beef farm. She's a geneticist. It's someone you might want to consider getting on your podcast. And she will always, so when we're talking about that, we will always go like, yeah, but so what? I mean, yes, if you have data available on certain things, is the farmer or the rancher able to act on that data? And does it deliver them with any value? It's not because we can that we must. So she's very, very good because we have those farmers in our team. As I said, the general manager in North America grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and his family still farms. So we have a lot of farmers in our team. I mean, they're very down-to-earth people, and that's who I take my advice from, because as I said, I don't have a farming background. I've got a tech background, internationalization background, and I definitely don't have the answer. So I'm lucky that I've got those people in the leadership team that will ask those questions like, yes, we can do this, but what are we going to do with that data? What value is they're going to deliver to farmer? And that is where we have stayed true to ourselves. And that's also Sir William, very strongly, Sir William Gallagher. It was always about the so what. It's not because we can that we must. And that, I think, sets us apart also from maybe the big corporates. We can do that. We can have those conversations and we can say, no, look, our competitors are doing these things, but actually let them. We don't see the value in that. We push the envelope, but it has to deliver value. And we have these conversations often, like I had a couple last week when we were talking about all of the hardware that we sell has sensors on it, captures data, goes in the cloud. We provide that back to a farmer on the phone or on a web browser, and we're talking about integrating those data sources. And Sarah again said, yeah, you can do that. and we can have single sign-on, etc. And so what value is that offering to a farmer? And we said, well, it will be easier for us to have all that customer data in one spot and we have one sign-on. Yeah, okay, so it delivers value to us. I get that, but where does it deliver value to the customer? And then we went like, yeah, well, if we can do that, we can actually start looking for insights and that will then deliver value to our customer. Okay, she said, but let's be honest about that. The first step will deliver value to us, which will allow us to then start building stuff that will deliver value to them. But it's the first step doesn't, provide value to the customer. Let's be honest. So she's that voice of the farmer, which is so valuable for us. So we don't get carried away. A bunch of technologists getting carried away. She makes sure, and a lot of others in the business, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think it's important to be honest about that. And I think that's where a lot of folks have had trouble is I think they've convinced themselves that isn't this valuable for my customer? And the customer is telling them very clearly, no, it's not. Well, but couldn't it be valuable in the future? Yeah, maybe, but we have to get to that future somehow. Well, I mean, as the chief executive, what types of global dynamics keep you up at night to making sure that you can continue delivering value to those customers? I know you all are laser focused on what delivers value to those customers and keeping that dirt on your boots, but what outside factors keep you not concerned, but occupy your headspace when it comes to kind of carrying out your mission?
One of the ones is definitely the whole business model change, where for many, many decades, we've been interacting with our customers through putting products on a shelf. So via marketplace, we put product on a shelf and a customer walks in and buys it. That model is being disrupted, not just through e-commerce, because that's still a platform sale, but as we have more and more integrated solutions, and that's also where we want to go to, more software-based solutions. So it's the hardware. We will always be a hardware player because that's what we do really well. But hardware plus software, we can start creating solutions that are more holistic, integrated. 1 + 1 is 3. If you know where your animals are at all time, if you know we've got in-paddock wear, so we know what the weight gain is in paddock. We don't need to take them back to weigh them, in a separate location. We have pasture measurement that's automated. We know if we have water in certain locations. Adding all of these things together to help decision making for farmers. So, okay, if you don't have water in that water trough, let's automatically move those animals over there. Or if you know the weight gain, let's take some of those animals back to the shade. We can start making automated decisions. That requires us to also change some of that business model. That is no longer just a product you're selling that farmers walk in and they buy an Energizer and go home. We are selling a holistic solution that includes weigh scales and in-paddock weighers and e-shepherd and water monitoring. How do we do that? How do we sell that holistic solution from a company that's always worked through stores? How do we change that business model? We've always had a good relationship with end customers, but it was a different one. So that is keeping me up at night. How can we do that well? The other one would be all of the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing and how that could potentially disrupt our supply chains. Now, that's something that is part of my paradigm anyway, that I want to manufacture stuff as close to the end market as possible. So big US end market, let's try shifting some of that manufacturing in the US, shift some of that manufacturing into Brazil, for a big Brazilian market. Australia, we already have some manufacturing footprint. So that is always on my mind. It's not necessarily a big shift. It's just, again, the local view of trying to localize as much as possible. Some of the other things that keep me up at night would be the impacts of the environmental changes, and it's twofold. So first of all, the actual climatic changes make it a lot harder for us to predict when people will buy our product. Typically, like in Australia, we would know a lot better when we have a drought or when we're going to have El Nino, La Nina. It really has an effect on buying patterns, and it used to be a little bit more predictable. So we would be able to build stock and get stock in the stores for a rainy season or a dry season. These things are all a bit upset. We get floods when we don't expect them, droughts when we don't expect them. And so having the right product in the right place at the right time becomes a little bit more difficult and less predictable. And we've seen that. Big climatic events like we've had in New Zealand with big tornadoes coming through, floods coming through, people needed to restock. We weren't ready for that restock because we weren't expecting those assets being wiped away, being flooded. So that is a problem. And then on the climate side as well, the increased regulation. So because of the climate change conversations that are going on, we see countries putting in regulation, like keeping animals out of waterways. All of that regulation coming in also has an impact on our end customers who are being increasingly challenged to keep up with that. And they need to make big investments. Often people are walking away from farming altogether because it's becoming too hard. They're doing conversions from sheep and beef farms to forestry because it's just easier to plant trees. So these kind of things definitely have an impact on us, and they keep me awake at night. We can't control it, but we can make sure we're agile. We can, again, try and get alongside our farmers and help them and provide solutions. But yeah, not everything is in our hand. Like it's not in, farmers and ranchers are to bear the brunt of that as well. So we're in that together.
Wow. I loved all of that. That was really fascinating. Thanks for sharing all that. That's really cool. Lisbeth, I have really enjoyed this. Thank you for taking the time. Anything else that you'd want to add or emphasize before we stop the recording here?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that I haven't got a background in agriculture, and that so I look at things from the tech, the globalization, and understanding customers. I've always been really, really focused on understanding customers. And for me, the farming and the agricultural world is very new. So you have to take that into account when you listen to me, that I am not like Sarah, so I try to surround myself with people who do know agriculture really well and take a lot of guidance from them. And we develop this together, this strategy. So I don't want to come across like I know anything when it comes to agriculture or I've got the answers. It's really a collaboration between our team, but also our customers and us. So look, if I made any stupid mistakes and I said something that sounded really stupid from a farming background, you have to forgive me.
Well, you didn't on this show, that's for sure. But thank you so much for taking the time. And like I said, I'm looking forward to getting this out, edited and published. So thank you again. All right, well, that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you very much to Lisbeth Jacobs, and highly encourage you to go learn more about Gallagher Animal Management at their website, which we will, of course, include in the show notes. Also need to give a very special thank you to my good friend, JJ Jones, for the connection to Lisbeth. Really appreciate his help and continued support for the podcast. And last but never least, thank you for your time and your attention. I do not take it lightly. I'll be back next week with another story of ag innovation.